Sometimes the person who saves your life disappears before you even get the chance to say thank you. Even now, when I close my eyes, I hear that sound. Metal grinding against metal, and then the silence. A silence worse than any scream. I remember being absolutely certain, in that second, that this was it. That I wasn't going to see anything else. And then I saw her face. She was leaning over me so close I could feel her breath. She had my head in her hands that were shaking so hard I could feel it even through my own pain. But her voice stayed calm, almost gentle, like she wasn't talking to some stranger who just nearly died in a crushed car, but to someone she actually knew. She kept telling me to look at her, not to close my eyes, asking if I could hear her. I could hear every word through the ringing in my ears and the blood I could feel on my face, even though something as simple as nodding took everything I had. She kept saying, "The ambulance is coming, just hold on." And I held on. Not for myself, honestly. In that moment, I barely cared what happened next. I held on because she asked me to, and there was something in her voice you just couldn't say no to. I tried to ask her name. My tongue wouldn't cooperate. What came out was some kind of rasp, and she just shook her head, like she was saying, "Not now, we'll talk later, just breathe." I squeezed her hand as hard as I could, like I was afraid she'd disappear too if I let go. She squeezed back, leaned in closer, said something quiet, almost right in my ear, and I didn't catch it. Couldn't catch it. Between the rushing in my ears and my own pulse pounding so loud, it felt like it was trying to drown out the whole world. That's when I heard the siren, far off. Relief. That's what I should have felt in that moment. Instead, I felt her hand starting to pull away from my head, slowly, carefully, like she was already getting ready to stand up and leave. I managed to rasp out something like, "Wait." She didn't wait. By the time the ambulance actually got there, by the time they were lifting me onto the stretcher, half conscious, I turned my head with whatever strength I had left, looking for her among the people who'd gathered. She was gone, like she'd just dissolved into the rain, which was still coming down quiet and steady, like nothing had happened at all. I couldn't believe it. The woman who'd just been holding my head with hands shaking out of fear for my life had vanished without even telling me her name. At the hospital, when the doctor told me how lucky I was, a couple of fractures, some bruising, a concussion, a full recovery ahead of me, I just lay there staring at the ceiling. I wasn't thinking about my own body at all. I was thinking about her, about how she'd appeared out of nowhere, saved me, and vanished just as fast, like she was scared to stay even a minute longer than she had to. The nurse, when I asked if there was any record of the woman who'd saved me, just shrugged and said, "People like that show up sometimes. They help and then they move on. Not everyone wants to deal with paperwork and statements." It sounded logical, reasonable even, and still, something in me refused to believe it. Police talked to a few witnesses from the street, and everyone's story lined up. A woman had run to my car right after the crash, pulled me out because smoke was already coming from under the hood and my door was jammed. She'd stayed with me, kept me talking, kept me from blacking out, and she was gone before the paramedics even showed up. Nobody remembered a license plate, if she'd even come by car. Nobody could really describe her face. Just general details, dark hair, dark clothes, like she'd been trying on purpose to stay invisible even while she was saving somebody's life. A week went by, then another. I got discharged, went back to work, back to the same ordinary evenings, and from the outside I'm sure it looked like I'd just survived an accident and kept moving. But every night, falling asleep, I heard that same voice telling me to look at her, not to close my eyes. Every night I asked myself the same question I couldn't answer. Why would someone fight that hard for my life and then run just as hard from staying in it, even for one more minute? I didn't know it then, but the answer to that question would turn out to be nothing like what I imagined. All I knew was one thing: I had to find her. That thought wouldn't let go, day or night. About 2 weeks after the accident, I started actually looking. First, I tried the easy route, posted in local social media groups, described what happened, asked the woman who'd helped me that night to come forward. Nothing. Then I tried the hospital, figuring maybe she'd been there for something of her own that same day. Maybe a camera had caught something. The receptionist just shrugged. There were cameras on that stretch of road, but that exact spot happened to sit in a blind zone. I'd almost given up on ever finding her when, out of nowhere, I ended up talking to a guy who lived near the accident site and walked his dog there every evening. He remembered her, not because he'd seen the crash, but because he'd seen her sitting alone on a nearby bench afterward for a long time, looking like she'd just been through something heavy. He'd even said a few words to her, asked if she was okay, and she'd said something like, "I'll be fine, I just need to calm down." He also remembered her mentioning a clinic, said she was in a hurry because she had a morning shift. There weren't that many clinics in town, so I started calling them one by one, making up excuses. On the third call, a nurse at the front desk, when I happened to describe what she looked like, dark hair, kind of short, said that sounded like Whitney, that she worked there as an ICU nurse. My heart basically stopped right then. I drove to the clinic the next day, waited outside like a teenager, and the second she walked out, I recognized her instantly, even though I'd only seen her for a few minutes on the road, half out of it. I recognized her voice when she said hi to a coworker at the door, recognized the way she carried herself, shoulders back, steady, like she was always ready to act. I walked up and told her I thought she'd saved my life 2 weeks earlier. Told her exactly where, when, what details I remembered. Her face changed instantly. Not the recognition I'd honestly kind of expected. Some spark of, "Oh, it's you." Something else. Unease, almost fear, like I'd handed her bad news instead of a thank you. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I really don't want to talk about this," and walked away. I didn't give up. The next week I came back, brought flowers. Not trying to hit on her, honestly. Just wanted to thank her somehow. She wouldn't take them. Said it wasn't necessary. That she'd just done what anyone would have done in her place. I told her not everyone stops on a wet road with a car smoking and stays until the ambulance shows up. She went still for a second, then said something I remembered word for word. That's exactly why it's hard for me to talk about it. It took a few more weeks of careful, low-key conversations in the clinic hallway. I'd signed myself up for routine checkups, honestly, just to have a reason to keep seeing her, before she finally told me the truth. 3 years before our accident, she'd been in the car with her husband on a similar road, somewhere else. Something almost identical happened. A car crossing into their lane on wet pavement. Except that time she was in the passenger seat, and he was the one driving, and she couldn't save him. He died in her arms before the ambulance ever got there. Ever since, she'd made a point of avoiding anything related to accidents. Changed her route to work so she wouldn't pass the places where crashes had happened. Avoided the news whenever accidents came up. Even at the clinic, if coworkers started talking about some rough case from the ER, she'd find a reason to leave the room. That night, she'd taken a different road than usual too. Construction on her regular route. And when she saw my car, wrecked, the first thing she felt was panic, the urge to just keep driving, pretend she hadn't seen anything. But something made her stop. She said she still can't fully explain what. Her foot just hit the brake on its own. The whole time she was holding my head, telling me everything would be fine, she wasn't just fighting for me. She was fighting her own terror, the one that hadn't let go of her in 3 years. And once the ambulance came and the danger passed, she just couldn't hold it together anymore. Everything she'd been keeping locked up hit her all at once, and the only thing she wanted was to disappear, to be alone. "I didn't run from you," she told me later, looking me straight in the eye. "I ran from myself." After that, something between us started to shift. I stopped showing up as the guy who wanted to say thanks. I started showing up because I actually cared whether she was okay. We began talking longer, sometimes just sitting quietly together, and slowly she started opening up about more than just the accident, about her life, about how hard it had been to go back to ICU work after losing her husband, how people kept telling her she should switch specialties, and how she'd stubbornly stayed anyway, because, in her words, somebody has to save people, even if they're scared too. Almost 6 months went by before she called me first, for no particular reason, just to see how I was doing. I remember sitting at home staring at my phone screen for way too long, not quite believing she'd made the first move. Now, telling you this story, we've been married for 3 years. Last night, while I was sitting there writing all this down, she walked into the kitchen, saw me writing, and asked what it was. I said, "The truth." About that night on the road. She sat down across from me, took my hand the same way she did back then, and said, "I still get nervous driving that road sometimes." "I know," I said. "That's why we always take the other one." She smiled, squeezed my hand tighter, and said something that probably sums up everything between us better than anything else could. "I'm glad I didn't drive past this time.